So the way we're gonna work is I'm gonna ask Angela some questions and she's gonna answer them, all the ones she wants to answer. And then we're just gonna open it up to you all.
I'm gonna move this slightly so you're actually like, we get your face and they're good too. See, this is the problem with the photographer. You're like, wait, let me check on the camera.
So I want to start with some bio questions. Are you all good back there? Can you see? I know it's tough when you set it up and then like people, kind of move around. Okay, so when did you start taking pictures? How old were you?
I think I was 12, to be honest. And I brought this Instamatic. Does everyone remember this? Because my dad used to use it on vacation and he would never let me touch it. But then by the time I was 12, it was kind of old. And so I loved this thing and I went around taking pictures with it. And you just pop this film thing in. You don't have to do anything else, right? And I went around taking pictures. And in my family, I felt like nobody saw me. My parents would just seem like I wasn't there. And I even had 4 siblings, but still they were very disassociative. And I remember as a kid, my dad would come by a room and turn the lights out while I was in there. And I'd be devastated when I was younger. And then when I got older, I'd be like, hey, and he would say, I didn't see you. Really on a regular basis. So when I got this camera from my dad, I kind of just found it in the closet because he didn't use it anymore. I started taking pictures of everything, but I didn't really know anything about it. And one day I remember taking a picture of another girl that I used to play with in the neighborhood. And what I loved about the pictures was I could look at her for a long time when I had the picture. And I couldn't look at her for a long time in person because, it would give me away, right? And so that was a really good thing. And I also thought it was so magical that you could click something, right? Like this is literally how long it takes, right? That's how long it takes for me to take an exact replica of somebody. That is absolutely magical to me, even today, even taking lots of photography classes, understanding every part of that process. It's still a miracle to me and very magical. So I love photography. But the other thing I wanted to tell you is I became a photographer for proof because I didn't really feel like people saw me, in my family. And so we'll talk about that more later, but that's really why I got started. But I just want to tell really quick one more thing. I went around with this camera and I took all these photos of myself. I thought, right? I was holding it. It was very awkward. And then I'll tell you in a little while what happened when I got that film developed. But we can go to another question.
Okay. And I see some people really craning their necks here. So we have a couple seats up here.
And you can move your seats a little if you want.
We have some couple seats up here. So if people want to move or move your seats around, feel free. But there's some seats right up here too.
So that was a long answer.
That's okay. So I think you answered what made you get interested in photography, but we'll talk some, that'll come up. So the title of the show is Proof. And I talked a little bit at the beginning, we have always been here. And, really, that idea that we have always been here, but there hasn't always been proof that we have always been here. And so part of that really is the photographs, like we were here,
Right.
And I know you and I, that's part of the vision of the Mazer, is to say, we have always been here in the awesome logo for the Mazer, which is where lesbians live forever.
Right.
And part of that is there's proof that we were here. There's proof. Here's the Mazer, here's the Lesbian History Archives, here's the Bay Area archives, so that we know that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. You're not the first lesbian. Sometimes we feel that way, but
I absolutely felt that.
Yeah. So what made you get interested sorry, we answered that one. But this is part of it. Why is the title Proof so important?
Yeah, so the title Proof is so important to me because I went around taking pictures of myself with this camera. And I got the film back and I wasn't in any of the photos. And I thought, oh my God, no one really does see me. I really don't exist. And I thought that at 12, And then later in my life, you might be going there next, but later in my life, when I went to college, but I want to say this, I thought I was the only lesbian on the planet till I was at least 15. I grew up in Anaheim in what we called behind the orange curtain, right? It was so conservative. As you'll see from the wall and other things, I didn't even date until I was in my 20s because it was too dangerous. And there was a time Disneyland was 5 miles away. And I remember being in junior high or high school when two girls were escorted out of Disneyland for dancing together. So it was very homophobic and very conservative and not. And so I really didn't see people like me when I was growing up. And until I got to college, then I knew that I wasn't the only lesbian in the whole planet. And I started taking photography classes. And one of the first two classes, I learned about a different camera. So I have this camera, which is my favorite camera still, a Pentax K1000. You have to do everything for this. This does nothing for you, as opposed to this, right, where you just click. The Kodak Instamatic, for those who didn't see that. So when I started taking this class, the first or second class, the teacher said, the difference between a cheaper camera than this is that the viewfinder's off to the side and the lens is over here. So if you're too close, you could take a picture and get something entirely different than what you were trying to photograph. And then I realized why I wasn't in those photos. And it wasn't because I didn't really exist. And he said, in this camera, you look straight through the lens and you get exactly what you're looking at. And so, of course, I was like, I love this camera. So it was, really validating on so many levels, right? So
Yeah. How many of us felt like we were the only gay person then?
few people, oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's common. Like for me, I walked into my first gay bar and I was like, oh my God, there's this many of us. Like I thought, well, that was it,
Yeah.
Just all the lesbians in Massachusetts right here, So I think that's a really important thing and to document it. So that is proof. That's the title then.
Right. And so then proof to me was I became a photographer for proof that I'm not the only lesbian in the world. There are others. And I really wanted to photograph the whole gay community. I mean, we called it all the gay community then, now the LGBTQ community. I wanted to photograph the whole community, but I really focused a lot on lesbians because I was one and I never saw them when I was young, right? And I wanted to see them forever after. So,
yeah. We have done a project for many years now with my students. I teach at Cal State Northridge in queer studies and gender women's studies. And we do a project interviewing gay elders and archiving those stories in the Mesa. And there's always a story that you tell about why you got so interested in photographing lesbians that happened to you when you went to college. So do you want to tell that story?
Sure. Yeah. It's such a sad story, really. But so I finally
But here you are.
but it has a happy ending, which is unlike a lot of lesbian movies I watched as a kid or even as an adult. So I went to Fullerton College in Orange County also. And I took a lot of photography classes, and I was just brave enough suddenly to join the gay club. And right when I was joining the gay club, the school decided they didn't want to fund the gay club anymore. And so the head of the gay club went to the ACLU and sued the college. And the court said, we thought we had won. They said, if you're going to fund any clubs on campus, you have to fund the gay club. And they abolished all clubs on campus. And not only did they abolish all clubs on campus, I found out later they abolished all clubs on all Orange County community colleges campuses. So not just my school, but when I was there, I just thought it was Fullerton College, but it was all of them, the whole district. So that's how homophobic and right-wing this area was, right? And so almost subconsciously, I was like, oh my God, I waited all this time. I felt alone all my young life. And now there's not even going to be a gay club. And there was a Christian table every week in the quad anyway, even though they said we're not going to fund any clubs. So that was really awful for me. And so subconsciously in my mind, I was like, that's it. I am going to photograph the gay community and lesbians for the rest of my life. And I did. I mean, I really started taking pictures in the 80s. If those of you those of you that lived through the 80s know, most people were in the closet. So I drove my car to LA to take photos and nobody wanted me to take their picture. And so I've always been very indebted to the city of West Hollywood because I came upon the LA Pride Parade and Festival and I could photograph everybody in the parade because they were in a parade. And so they were out. And so 1986, I believe, was my first Pride parade. And I started taking pictures then and I was thrilled to death. And I really did this most of these 40 years with my own gas money, my own film money. I really budgeted to do this. And I was driven, and anybody that knows me would say, I'm still driven to do this. I'm all lesbian all the time.
Professional.
I am a professional lesbian. Yes, it's true. I've earned that title.
You got the t-shirt. My wife gave you it.
Yes, yes, she did.
I also want to say, because it's being recorded too, and I'm not sure that we put this in a recording, that you met through me, Karen Renee, right? And you didn't know that she was, and some of you may have known her, she was Wonder Dyke for a while in West Hollywood. She now got married and lives in Hawaii. But Karen Renee was the lesbian who took it to the ACLU.
And I didn't know until she told me her last name was Karen Schmidt. And I knew her as Karen Schmidt. She was the woman who went to the ACLU and got that lawsuit filed with the courts and had that outcome. But yeah, I met her again through you. I hadn't seen her in years. Yeah, probably 25 years later. So she was still around. She's still around.
Lesbians do a lot of stuff. Lesbians do a lot of stuff. I want to ask how you got involved with the Mazer. Here we are at the Mazer,
Yeah, well, one of the things I like to talk about is how volunteering in my life is one of the best things I have ever done. It changed my life for the better every time I did it. So I volunteered at the LA Center. I volunteered at Outfest for over 20 years. And I was thrilled to death because it gave me the people I needed to photograph for for all these years. And I kind of forgot the focus of your question.
How did you get involved? So and I know, you had seen this thing, and I think
with the
Mazer Archives, we're in the one gallery, but the Mazer Archives is upstairs. And so this was here. And then I
was taking pictures everywhere and I kept running into the board members of the Mazer. And pretty soon they were like, you should come. I think they did a show and tell somewhere for a lesbian group at the center. And I was there and they did a lesbian quiz that I knew all the answers to. And they go, you have to come to the archives. Yeah, I remember.
So how long have you been involved with the Mazer?
18 years now. Yeah. Yes, and we've been around 45 years, and for almost 45 of those, we have been completely volunteer run. And for the last year, we have a Mellon grant that has hired a full-time archivist and a full-time executive director, and then a part-time social media person, which is me, sort of, with help. But yeah, we've been around a long time. We were founded in Oakland in 1981. And when we opened, they collected anything a lesbian ever touched, which was a lot. So when you go in there, it's a lot of eclectic collections. We have lesbians' hats and everything else, women's baseball uniforms from League of Their Own and other baseball teams and stuff. And that was amazing to me too, because when I was a kid, I always wanted to play professional baseball. And no matter how good I was, and I had 3 brothers and I was better than all of them, I could never try out for baseball and I could never play Little League. And I came to the archives and found out women were paid to play professional baseball in the 50s. And I was like, how can I not play in the 70s? So it was interesting to learn that history, that other women wanted to be baseball players. There wasn't something wrong with me. So that was another really validating thing from the archives too.
Yeah, and that's how I got involved with the Mazer, actually. was doing a book reading when they got, and Angela just, we have an entire teams collection from the teams that were showcased in League of Their Own, through not the movie, but from
the whole team's uniforms.
Yeah, and
were
I got
donated.
when that gift came, that's when I did a poetry reading.
Oh, okay. That was before
Midnight Special.
That was before I got to the Mazer.
That's how I got involved. So, links. So I wanted to talk about the Mazer and how you got involved in the Mazer, because here we are. But I wanted to backtrack and talk about, you were photographing everywhere. And one of the ways that you were photographing everywhere was Lesbian News, right? So Lesbian News was a newspaper. How many of you read Lesbian News? Yeah, and is it out yet? Because that's how this is pre-internet, way pre-internet. So how are we going to find out where everything was happening? It was Lesbian News. So that started from you were everywhere, right? Lesbians on location.
Right. And I used to go look for the Lesbian News before it came out. And Jinx, when she first started it, would have it out on the 28th instead of the 1st. And I was thrilled because it told me everything I was going to do in my life for the next month, right? Every party, every book signing, anything going on in the community was in the Lesbian News.
And you were their staff photographer for a while.
Yeah, you know how I became their staff photographer? Because a lot of people say, what's your advice to young people? And I want to say volunteer, and I want to say be there when they're hiring for something, because everywhere I went, the Lesbian News was there. And when they needed a photographer, they just offered me the job, right? Because I was there already taking pictures. So I worked for them for about 5 years in the early 2000s. But I did submit pictures, a few, in the 80s and 90s, but just a few pictures were published before that.
Yeah, so Lesbians on Location was really fun when Angela was doing that, because I was like, I'm in the picture, we're on location.
It was such a great thing
so
for
fun,
me. Yeah, and in fact, there's in the little glass cases back there is a Lesbians on Location in the middle of the Lesbian News, and I took most of those photos. And it was so great because I took photos in bars. And I always tell young people, nobody took a camera to a lesbian bar in the 50s. You would be kicked out on your butt, right? Because we were mentally ill, we were sinners, and we were often illegal. So nobody wanted to be photographed. And I felt like most people didn't want to be photographed till the 90s. The 80s were really tough. And the 90s, Girl Bar started in the 90s. And I don't know, does everybody remember Girl Bar? Anybody? Girl Bar made lesbians chic for the first time. And it was around 95 with lipstick lesbians, if you've heard that term. I credit the Girl Bar women, Sandy Sachs and Robin Gams, for starting lipstick lesbians. And I'll always be grateful to them, because I will never forget going to a Dinah Shore, my first Dinah Shore Girl Bar party. And I was on this escalator. And as the escalator went down, I saw 300 lesbians in a room. And I was like, that had never happened to me before in my life. So I was thrilled. Even though I didn't fit the Girl Bar, look, or I was never chic. I still am not chic, but I still was very appreciative that they started that. And they had a lot of parties here in West Hollywood.
And you were also photographing for Outfest. So we have an Outfest picture here. We have some other Outfest, and Outfest hopefully is going to come back. It's a lot of Outfest isn't happening right now, but fingers crossed. It looks like it's making the move to resurrect. And you were photographing the red carpet.
Yeah, for 22 years I photographed Outfest. Yeah, and I only stopped because COVID happened and other things happened to stop that.
Yeah. So I hope all of you had a chance to look at the images on the wall. So what I want to ask you about is, which is the oldest picture here?
Yeah,
First picture that, all this stuff, which is the one that you took the first? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's Christy McNichol, which is on this wall.
Under me with the blue hair.
Yes. So everybody know who I mean? Right under you. So the reason that was so important to me was I was trying to get out of Orange County. And at 16 and 17, I was driving to LA, and a friend of mine photographed celebrities for fun. So I followed him, And we were at Merv Griffin's, and she was going in the artist entrance. And I had my favorite kind of lens, which was a prime lens. It only shoots what you want and it blurs everything else. Now you would call it a portrait lens, maybe. So I wasn't very close to her. I was probably a little closer than this, but I got this headshot because of that lens. And I was thrilled to death because as a kid, Christy McNichol was the closest thing I could ever identify with on TV. And so I so appreciated her. And yeah, there's so many things to say about Christy McNichol as far as, her being a childhood star and having a really hard time with that. I won't go into that too much, but I really followed her until she stopped acting at 24. She retired, right? But she played Buddy on a show called Family that was filmed in Pasadena, and she was a tomboy. And it was like, wow, I can relate to this person. And then that's around 1979 to 81. I wasn't sure what year on that. And then the photograph here with the banana, that's my first girlfriend I ever had. And we went to high school together, but we never dated because we were petrified to date. So we went out in college. And so that was the first time I started dating. I was at least 21, actually.
And that is mimicking a handset phone, which we don't have anymore.
Yes, she became a really great actor. And I always say it looks like she has a reception on that banana because she was a really, really good actress, even to this day.
So you put these in the collection because they were early photos, because you love them.
Well, because they meant so much to me. I mean, Christy McNichol was the first thing that ever validated some of my feelings. And of course, my first girlfriend, I never thought there were any other lesbians in the world. So I was thrilled to death that someone would go out with me, right? Because she had to be a lesbian or she wouldn't have dated me. So I was thrilled to death to date her and, for a few years.
Have you ever had someone respond unexpectedly to a photo that you've taken of them? Now, I'm assuming Christy McNichol has not seen that photo.
No, I tried to get a hold of her, but I have a really hard time getting a hold of famous people. They, I get emails and write them, but I don't usually hear back. So I was hoping somebody who knows her will tell her it's here.
Yeah.
Because I would love to just talk to her about it and thank her,
And how did Carol respond to this?
She came this week to see the whole exhibit and she thought it was great, but honestly, she was in the closet a lot of her life. And so to get her to sign a release was actually, I had to talk her into that for about a month. So she still lives in Orange County or close enough. Wow. Sorry, she lives near Orange County still. So
did you want to talk at all about this question? Have you had somebody respond unexpectedly?
Oh, yeah, I really do. There's two things that come to mind. One is I'll never forget photographing Matthew Shepard's mother. And she was at the LA Center. I was volunteering as a photographer. And what I'll never forget is all these gay men surrounded her. They loved her and she loved them. But I remember a group of them with her, and I put my camera up to my face, and it was the only time in my life when I looked at somebody through that lens and saw someone with no inclination to smile whatsoever. And she looked like the joy in her life had been drained out of her through her feet. And I just never forgot that because everything I read and heard about her, she was such an amazing woman. I mean, if you ever read about Matthew Shepard and the trial and everything, she was just a stellar person. And she was volunteering for, I think it was a gay youth program. Yes, the Trevor Project. And she was going all over the country. She's from Nebraska, I believe. So, and I just will never forget that photo. And on a totally different note, I have this really unusual experience because I've photographed people in the community for 40 years. And so I take all these pictures and then 20 years later, I go through my photos and I see people who are my friends. And they weren't my friends when I took the picture. And it happens all the time. And it's such an amazing feeling, like Beverly, like you, Nancy. I mean, we saw each other all over, but I took your picture maybe, but then years later, we know each other and we become friends. And I think that's a really unique thing that doesn't happen to most people because you'd have to be a photographer. And in fact, a photo in this exhibit, I could tell stories about just getting the signatures to be able to use these photos. But one woman said, "You can't use that picture because that's a picture of me with a woman I don't know very well, and I've been married to my wife for 24 years." And I looked through my photos and found a photo of her with her wife. And she said, "Okay, you can use that." And so that photo's in here. But how many people can do that? You know?
There's so many stories here on the wall, and I know a lot of the stories. We can't tell all those stories, but I would really like for you to just talk about this picture right here, because I know that's one of your favorite pictures, and you actually have it hanging
In my home.
Right. This picture of the two women dancing right here.
Yeah, so there's so much about that picture that's so special to me. One thing is, two girls were escorted out of Disneyland for dancing together when I was young. So I never dreamt I would see two women, especially older than me, right? Because things got better as I got older, but they weren't great way back. But I saw these two women who were much older than me at a party I photographed every year, and they were dancing incredible dancers. But they were dancing around the dance floor, and I stood and looked at them, and tears just streamed down my face because I never believed I would see that in my lifetime. And so I probably had tears going down my face for about 5 minutes before I could take that picture. I kind of wiped my face and took that picture. And to me, that picture is a dream, and it looks like a dream too. I'm really big on things being sharp, but it's a little dreamlike in that it's more soft focus. And it just seemed magical that it came out that way because I really never, just like I never ever thought we'd have, marriage equality ever in my lifetime. It's kind of the same kind of thinking. Wow. Am I dreaming or did that really happen?
And Linda Locke, the woman in the front, is a dancer. Actually, a well-known dancer. One of the places where I teach UCI, they just last year, I think, performed one of her dances. She's a modern dancer, and she also teaches yoga in Venice.
Yeah, so that's Linda Locke in front, and then Diane Raymond in the back, who is also an incredible dancer too.
Yeah, I just because this was an awesome dance that we would go to every year. But first time I brought my girlfriend, who's now my wife, we came up the dance floor, and Diane looked at us and she goes, "You can take lessons."
Well, she was a pretty perfect butch, and she wanted everyone to realize that.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to say about a photograph changing your relationship with the subject?
Well, I think the picture back there with the two hands, you see that really big one of hands? So it says that on the card, but I'm going to tell that story real quick because it's so amazing to me. In 1995 or 6, this movie came out called Serving in Silence. Did anybody see it? It's about Colonel Marguerite Cammermeyer, right? She challenged Don't Ask, Don't Tell. She was the highest officer in the military challenging the gay Don't Ask, Don't Tell ban, whatever you call it. And she eventually won, which was amazing because Don't Ask, Don't Tell was still in effect when she won her case. But she had a stellar record and she was a colonel. But in that movie, they made a movie about her because it was such an amazing story. And Glenn Close played her in the movie. Barbara Streisand produced the film. And Judy Davis played her then girlfriend, later to be wife. So in the movie, I'm watching that in 96. And in the movie, her girlfriend gives her a ring. And she says, "I love this ring, so if you don't like it, give it back to me." And she hands her the ring, and she puts it on her finger, and she says it's an Edwardian buckle ring. And Colonel Cammermeyer, Glenn Close says, "I love it." And I said to myself, if I ever meet those women, I'm going to ask them if I can photograph their hands because they eventually traded rings. Colonel Cammermeyer had an exact replica made when they got married. And so those were their wedding rings in the end. And so 15 years later, I was working at the Mazer, I'm at UCLA, and we actually got Colonel Kalmermeyer's collection because of me. I wrote her to ask her a question out of nowhere, and I said, P.S., if your collection's not going anywhere in particular, we'd love to have it. And she wrote me back the next day and said yes. And so we told UCLA, it's a long story, we have a great relationship with UCLA, and they were eventually going to get that collection through us. And they said, but if we're getting her collection, we need to do an oral history with her. And we're sitting around with all these archivists I worked with at UCLA. And this woman said, well, the oral history department would say it has to be somebody who knows everything about her. And all the archivists pointed at me. And they said, would you go up to Whidbey Island in Seattle and interview her if we pay you? And I was just like, am I dreaming again? And I said, of course I will. And so I did, 15 years after I saw that movie. And before I left, I asked them if I could photograph their hands. And I got their hands with those Edwardian buckle rings on them. And it was just, those are the kind of things that keep me going all my life, that's like, I don't know, winning a big award as a professional lesbian.
Can you talk a little bit about this community wall and why it's here?
Yeah, the community wall is one of the most important things in the room for me because I've taken pictures in the community for over 40 years. I absolutely love this community. I really think a lot of, you'll see it's from all different things, parties, the AIDS ride, the parade and pride, all different places, and GLAAD Awards, for example. And so it's so important to me because I've become a huge part of this community and they are my friends, and it's just, it couldn't be more important to me. That's what I'd love to say about it.
And what was the process of choosing these ones that were on the wall?
Well, I had to pick 30 photos. And I have taken a Pride Festival weekend. I've taken 600 photos in a weekend. So choosing 30 photos out of 40 years of photographing people was excruciating, honestly. And so I narrowed it down to 100, and then I got to 50, and then the archivists and everybody upstairs at the Mazer helped me narrow it down. It was really difficult, and it was a huge life review. Like I said, I went through more photos where I went, oh my God, that's a friend of mine now. And I didn't even know I took her picture in 2005, So it was really difficult, but I think because I had help, and I think also because I wanted to pick some of the best pictures I've ever taken, that really helped. Because sometimes at parades and stuff, you get a good shot, but it's not the best photo you ever took. So those are some of the criteria for choosing.
Could you talk a little bit about the collaboration with the Getty and how that happened? Because that was unique.
I would love to.
That was unique to this event, right? I don't think that's happened before with the Mazer.
Right. No, it hasn't. We were introduced to a woman at the Getty by somebody in our relationship with UCLA. Sharon Farb was a head person at UCLA Library, and she introduced us to a couple of the women from the Getty. And the one woman we met probably 2 years ago now, she told us that she loved to do community work, but she didn't have time up on the hill at the Getty. So she loved to come out and see different community organizations and go into different communities and see what they needed or see what they might need help with. And so about a year or two later, I wrote her and said, the Mazer's going to do an exhibit of my work, and I really need help because I haven't ever done an exhibit like this. And she was like, I would love to help you. So it started a big new relationship with the Getty. It was phenomenal. We couldn't have done it like this without them. They offered us these frames as a donation. They said they would train our archivists how to archivally mat and frame these photos. So we spent a day like 8 hours at the Getty with these people who all did this at the Getty for a living. And they were fabulous. They were wonderful. They taught us everything and how they did it. And they were meticulous. I mean, these frames, I've never seen any frames like these, and I've hung photos my whole life. These are just stellar frames. There's like 6 or 8 screws you have to put in the back of these frames. They're really amazing, totally archival. And so they really helped us with that. And then
How about the prints?
yes, and they recommended everything. They recommended the print lab, and I hadn't used a professional lab in 20 years. They recommended Weldon Film Lab near the over near on Robertson, near the 10 and the 405, and they were phenomenal. They also recommended the company for the window signs where you see proof. They recommended a company that did that. I would have never known who to go to or, how to do that. So they couldn't have been more helpful to us and more generous too.
It's so wonderful, the community collaborations, right? Especially when, like what you were talking about, lesbians weren't photographed, lesbians weren't seen, we were mentally ill until 1973 by the profession. Obviously we didn't have marriage rights till 2015. So it's so great when you see an organization like the Getty, like having this kind of collaboration for the first time. And I think that's really important that this is happening here now,
Yeah, I think we couldn't have been more grateful.
So I think I know the answer to this question, but it is a question that we talked about. Do you feel a responsibility in your work, knowing that gay and lesbian history has been so often erased?
Yeah, I think I've always felt that. And again, because of my college and what happened, I really can't imagine feeling any more like you were supposed to disappear, right? I'm going to a college that makes the gay club disappear. So they made me disappear, right? Because I can't be out in the quad meeting other gay people at a booth or anything like that. So I think I really felt a responsibility to do this work. And I also created a lesbians that I had to photograph before I die list. So I think I felt a really serious responsibility to do that.
Who was on that?
There actually were quite a lot of people, and I photographed most of them, I would say. But people like Sheila Kuehl and Tori Osborne and Lori Jean of the center, and real movers and shakers who I saw.
Ivy is over there.
Ivy Bettini, absolutely. And, movers and shakers who I saw getting me more rights every year I was older. Like Sheila Kuehl, I think she's gotten over 100 bills through California legislature for LGBTQ people. I mean, one person, she would say she didn't do it alone, and I know that's true. But she was like a beacon to me. And somebody like Virginia Uribe, if you don't know her, and Gail Rolfe, who started Project 10. I was in high school when Project 10 started, and Project 10 started at Fairfax High School, and it was his counselor, Virginia Uribe, who said, we need to label ourselves that we're gay allies to students who are queer because they're not doing well, and we need to help them. And even though that did not happen where I was living or at my high school, it was like she shot up a flare in the sky from where I was. And I never forgot her name. And she was absolutely on my list of lesbians to photograph before I died.
That's awesome. Is there any image here that particularly changed you as a photographer? I mean, you talked about this one before.
Yeah, I think just, those people on that list really made a difference in my life. And so Tori Osborne here on the microphone, I was so thrilled to get her picture. And she was a very accessible person. And I think 89, she was the head of the center. She was the first woman head of the center. And it was the AIDS crisis, and she was arrested for AIDS activism. And I just admired her so much, but she was in the community, boots on the ground, and she was accessible to anybody. You could go up at the center and talk to her anytime. And I just was so grateful to her. And Ivy Bettini also, realtor in the community forever, fought for AIDS, AIDS research, and did so much activism that I heard about her for years before I ever met her. And so those people really made my life better. So I was really appreciative of them, and I wanted to document their lives a little bit.
I know last summer, the Getty did an awesome photo show with Jeb.
Right. Joan E. Byron.
Yeah. Which photographers influenced you?
That's a good question because, when I was younger, Margaret Burke White was somebody she's the photographer in the air suit from World War II, where she's hanging off a building with a giant camera. I mean, you just gotta love that, right? So I loved her and I loved her work. And I thought I wanted to be a National Geographic photographer because, as you can see, I see beauty in everybody. And I like people to look like they actually look. So I knew I wasn't going to be a studio photographer. And so anyway, I thought I would be a National Geographic photographer for a while. And I took some classes at UCLA. But then let me think. I kind of lost my
I think you started taking celebrity photos too, right?
Right. That was an amazing thing. When I was 16 and 17, I followed my friend John around, who was a gay man, and we photographed celebrities everywhere just for fun. We never sold them. We got offers to buy them, and we never sold them. But it was the most amazing time because I was 16 and 17, and it was the big movie stars were still everywhere. So we shot, Betty Davis and Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn. And we used to drive to LA and I'd have $20 for my film, my lunch, and my dinner. So I was like, do I want to take more pictures and skip lunch? Because film was expensive then. And we would drive into Beverly Hills and Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire. Fred Astaire would be walking to the post office when we drove by. And I never realized how lucky I was to have done that at that time. It was really amazing to have done that at that time.
So being a lesbian has really influenced you, but also being able to be in the gay community, like with your friend.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So other photographers who have influenced you?
Yes, I would like to list a few if you don't mind. Really, because Kathy Cade was somebody in the Bay Area who photographed lesbians a lot and early, like 68 or 9 and into the 70s and 80s. And she, like me, didn't just photograph people that looked like her. She included a lot more diverse people in her photos. I always admired that. And these might not be in any kind of order, but Jill Posner, who was from England and photographed, she photographed feminist radical activism when feminists would take over a billboard and write feminist things.
I remember those.
When they were totally sexist, and they would add their own caption and make it more feminist, And she's still around in the Bay Area. And also, of course, Laura Aguilar, of course, who's really an art photographer, but also Kathy Opie, for sure. Some of you have probably heard of a lot of these. And Jeb, absolutely. And Jeb, I didn't really learn, but I didn't see Jeb's photos like in the periodicals that I looked at as a young person, but I saw her work all over the Mazer archives.
Didn't she do art?
Yeah, she did. Yeah. So she seemed to cover a lot of everything. And then there's Morgan Gwenwald, who was a photographer in the East Coast, photographed everything. I was so jealous of what she got to photograph that I missed because I was, on the West Coast. And there's somebody else I'm forgetting that's very important, T. Corinne. Of all of those people, T. Corinne was the most amazing photographer and artist. She did book covers for NIAD, and she designed them in different ways, not just a regular photo. And she was an activist, and she was a publisher, and she helped other people get their books published. And she really was helpful in the community, so I really admired that about her. Very talented.
NIAD was a feminist press that came out of the lesbian feminist/feminist publishing boom in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, it published a lot of books.
It was probably the largest lesbian press ever. I mean, they published hundreds and hundreds of books.
Well, speaking of photographers that influenced you, I know you have a story about a bunch.
Oh, yeah. So I have a watch on from 1996. It's Annie Leibovitz. I don't know if anybody remembers, but she photographed the Olympics in 96, and she had all her photos in a book of the Olympic shots, but they made a swatch watch of her photos from the Olympics. And I've had it ever since. And it has all different photos. It has Carl Lewis and Joyner, I forget her first name. Florence and Jackie too, or no? Yeah. And she has them. And so a lot of them are on this, and it's all different sports. And she signed the back. I mean, not for me, but it came this way. And so, yeah, it's a really important watch to me because Annie Leibovitz was probably the most famous lesbian photographer I ever heard of, even to this day, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, she did the photo of Hillary Clinton on Hillary's last book.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Is there any other advice you want to give for somebody who wants to do this?
Well, I just think I can't.
Either as a hobby or as a career.
I think I can never say enough how important volunteering was for me, but I know that's not always affordable for people today, right? I mean, most people are just trying to pay their rent, by working full time. But I think don't believe people when they say to you, you can't just write for a magazine. You can't just take photos. You can't just be the staff photographer, because you really can. If you're in the right place at the right time and you have some skill and you know what you're doing and you're reliable, you really could do what you want to do. And so I always want to encourage people to be really true to themselves. And I want to say, what are we here for? In the world today, I think people lose sight of why are we here? A lot of people are here for money, but I think we're here. People are the most important thing to me. And I think we're here to be in relationships with each other. And so that is the most important thing to me. And so that would be my advice is do what you love, do what makes you happy, because why else are you here, right? I mean, how many days do we have? It seems like a lot, and it's really not a lot. Because really, I look at some of my old photos and go, wow, that seemed like 5 years ago, and it's 20.
And it's true. Like when I look around here, like there's a birthday party of mine with Pat, and she's now gone, right?
Yes.
And so, and here's me, like with Andrea. And so, like all around, it's so much of this is relationships that you've had with him.
Yeah, I wanted to say there's a photo.
Marna's on the wall here.
There's a photo here that Anne Bradley got all these lesbian people that were on my list of, she didn't do it on purpose, she didn't know. But all these lesbians who were people I wanted to photograph before I died, at least half this group is gone.
Yeah.
Like if I hadn't taken that picture then, I may as Robin Tyler, Ivy Bettini,
Ariana Mano.
Right. Tori Osborne and Jean Cordova.
Yeah.
I mean, most of those, not all of them. I don't want to say someone's dead when they're not, but half of those people at least are gone now.
Yeah.
And so we don't have forever. We don't have forever here.
I want to come back and ask what is going to happen to the show, but I wanted to see if anybody had any questions for Angela or questions or comments. Yes, the photographer in the room.
Another community photographer.
Are there any disasters, any shots, any missed, any situations you thought we had the shot?
Well,
I was going to ask, and I'm glad you asked it.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm going to confess something that I never talk about because it's so embarrassing. Because I always tell my girlfriend Heather, I remember every shot I missed. It's painful, but I remember every shot I missed, and none of them were as bad as this one. I was at Merv Griffin's way back shooting photos, and I was standing there with my friends, and remember film costs a lot, and I had my lunch money, and coming up behind me, someone said, "There's some guy coming by named Prince," and I was like, "Who's that? And who would call himself Prince anyway?" And he walked right by me, and I did not take his picture. And Kara from the Getty said, "Oh man, you just went way down in my book right now." And it was the most memorable person I ever missed a photo of in my life. And I never want to tell that story again. Because he deserved to call himself Prince. He was amazing, and I will regret that forever. So don't hold back. Do what you think you might regret now.
It is recorded. It is recorded. Yes.
I just remember occasions when we'd be photographing crowds of us at Outfest and how, we're so undisciplined, and then suddenly it was time to be on for a little bit for, with your help. And I was wondering what it's like to, and people at a party, you see, want something like be as glamorous as they can or something.
Right.
But photographs I've seen of yours from those things, also sometimes you get people to be as true, a real something true about the emerges. And what's the balance of trying to get the great photograph, but also it's under that kind of pressure.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's really hard. And, but I want people to be themselves in my photos. So if they're really obnoxious and they look that way in the photo, if they don't mind, then I'm taking their picture that way. I think, again, I see beauty in everyone. And so I was going to say one other thing that was really touching to me in my lifetime. It's happened to me about 4 times. There's a picture on the wall that reminded me of it. Is more than a couple times, someone has come to me and said, my wife passed. And I like your picture of her better than any. Can I use it at her memorial? And I don't know a bigger compliment ever. And that's probably happened to me 3 or 4 times. I was going to say there's 2 women on the wall here. They're both deaf. They were a couple. And this woman on this side in the white shirt, she is the first person in the United States, not male or female, the first person to ever get a MD in the United States, and she is completely deaf. And when her partner died, she asked me if they could use her partner's photo, my photo of her partner for the memorial, and I was just so touched by that. But I thought they were both amazing people. The other woman is a huge person in the deaf program at Cal State Northridge, actually. One of the leading people.
I think we interviewed her for my class.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think she was one of the interviews that we archived.
Oh, that's great.
Other questions? Any comments or questions? Anyone else? Yes, and then.
First, thank you so much for this talk. It's really beautiful, and thank you for the work that you've done over the years.
Thank you.
The contribution you've given to our culture, our society. At the beginning of the talk, you talked about how you started to you wanted proof that you existed. I'm just curious if you now that you've proven your existence, do you also now take pictures of yourself? Do we get to see those someday?
Yeah, I think photographers just notoriously hate being photographed. And Jill Posner, who I mentioned earlier, I never seen her in my life, but she came down for an event here, and I had to take a picture. She's on my list, and I said, "Can I take your picture?" And she was just like, "No, I'm a photographer. We don't like being photographed." And I looked down and saw she was wearing Doc Martens, and I shot her shoes, and she almost started to say no, and I was like, "You have to let me photograph your shoes." So I don't know if we were notorious for is that a low self-esteem thing, or we just don't want to be in photos? But I think you bring up a really good point, because as I've gotten older and maybe have more self-esteem and feel like I can take up some space in the world, I don't mind being photographed anymore. And this has been a big challenge for me because I'm not used to being in the limelight. But I'm really doing well with it because of encouragement from a lot of friends and other people like you who just said this wonderful thing to me. Thank you. Yeah, I never realized that, but yeah, I'm way more likely to just go, sure, and pose in a picture like everybody else has done for me.
Yeah.
Now.
I know that we've been to, I don't know, hundreds of events together, and Angela's taking the picture, and I have the distinction of being the best selfie taker in your estimation.
Yes, you are.
And
I'm a horrible one, yeah.
In order to make sure that there's a picture of her at an event, I will say, let's take a selfie, because otherwise I'm pretty sure you won't.
No, you're right. There wouldn't have been a photo.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really true most of the time. I'm not usually in the photos. And it really is true. Jeanette, who's the closest face up, the close up of her face, the biggest one. Jeanette is the head of Blue, Black Lesbians United. And I saw she was also a founder of ULOA, two of the biggest Black lesbian organizations in LA. I love her so much. I always say the best thing I can do for anyone is introduce them to Jeanette. But what I was going to say is she has a picture of ULOA in the archives, and it says, here's all the members of ULOA and Jeanette, who's not pictured. And I called her and I said, did you take that photo? And she said, yes. Well, she could have put it on a timer and gotten herself in there, but she was like, no, I'm a photographer. I'm not going to, So I think it's a really common thing for us.
Oh, sorry, and then.
I don't know who else is on your list of lists.
It's growing now because I was really getting a lot of them done. Somebody who I had on my list who I've never photographed is Joe Nessel, who was a founder of the Lesbian Archives in Brooklyn. And when I went to New York to take her picture, she had moved to Australia. And I was like, what kind of luck is that? So I have always wanted her picture and never gotten it. But yeah, I add to my list all the time.
But she's still alive.
She is still alive. She's battled cancer and she's still there. Yeah. She started that whole archive in her apartment. Yeah, so very grateful to her.
This is a photo related, it's more civil rights related, but approximately what year was it that they shut the clubs down in Fullerton, was it? At your school?
Oh, it was about 1981.
Okay, and then when were they allowed to be instigated again? How long did that?
Well, a friend of mine, actually Karen Schmidt, who had taken them with the ACLU to the courts, she goes, oh, they had the gay club within like 4 years later. And I said, it's a 2-year college. So I didn't care. I didn't care if they reinstated it 4 years later. I was there for 2 years and there was no gay club. And it was incredibly shaming. And I still resent it to this day.
And it is shocking when she tells that story to my students, but particularly horrible is the fact that you would walk through and the Christian clubs still had like funding, which was in defiance of
the school lied. They said they weren't going to fund any clubs, and they did. They funded the ones they wanted to.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments anybody has?
What is going to happen to this show? It's up till the 19th.
April 19th.
Is there any other events? So we talked about doing that artist talk, which I'm really glad that we did. And
that's me too.
Thank you all for listening to the recording when you get to see it. But what is going to happen? Are there any more events that are going to?
Well, another event that I believe is not this Sunday because it's Easter, even though we're open, I think. But the following Sunday is kind of going to be a community wall Sunday where I have a printer down here. Because let me show you real quick. This young woman came in and she was like, her name is Jennifer. I don't say a lot of people's names because I'm still very protective of people in the community. So I just talked about all these people and never really told you some of their names. That's really a habit from my youth. But anyway, she came in and she was like, what is this?
The opening day, March 14th.
And she was thrilled to death that every photo in here is of a lesbian or queer woman, right? She was like, what? And so she said, well,
she's from Orange.
She said, okay, I want my photo on this wall. And I was like, okay, but I took all those photos. And she goes, yeah, right. And what? She goes, take my picture and I'll go get it printed and I'll bring it back and then you can put it on the wall. And she did. She went to CVS. She got it printed. We put it on the wall and she said CVS told her it's free because she told them what she was going to do with it. And they gave it to her for free. And so then we put it on the wall and took a picture together.
And that was all the same opening of the exhibit. And so what is going to happen on?
Well, and that's why the community wall is so important to me because I only picked a certain amount of photos. I feel like I went through 100,000 photos before this happened. Yeah. I think I started in November and picked them by February. So anyway, this is so important to me. So I'm bringing a printer down. I'm going to take anyone's picture who wants to.
Awesome.
I know Sam, our archivist, I've already taken her. She's like, when's it going to be up? And so that's going to be not this Sunday, but next Sunday. I'm sorry, I don't even know the date, but we should look it up. And anyone who comes that day, I'm going to print out their photo right after I take their photo, and we're going to put it on the wall. And so I'm hoping it'll get, really filled up with photos that day. Yeah, so that it will be open 1 to 7. So hopefully a lot of people will come and do the community photos.
And then the show closes the 19th.
19th, yeah.
And so what is the plans? I mean, the Getty was obviously like incredibly involved here, working with the photographs. What is the plans for this work?
That's a good question. These framed photos are actually, most of them, not all of them, are going to be for auction. So you could buy one of these framed, and there's an auction link on the desk back there where you can shoot the barcode and you can bid on any of these photos if you're interested. And so that auction's been going on since the opening day. And yeah, it's a lot of the money will go to the Mazer Archives. It benefits the Mazer.
And then what is happening? Like, is there anything else happening with this show in terms of it becoming a book or?
You know what? People have asked me about that, but I don't have a plan for that yet. But I've had people offer to like design the book for me, because they like the photos.
It's such a great title, Proof, of the show, but also would be a great title of a book.
Yeah.
What are you working on now?
Well, I want to tell you one more thing about Proof, just because you said that. I just want to say, even though do you want to hear the bad or the good story first? The bad thing is, in my family, proof didn't matter because my family members were so dysfunctional. I would take pictures of them doing stuff and I'd say, no, remember we went there. And they would look at the photos and go, no, we didn't do that. And so I felt like it didn't matter. But now I've been photographing the community for so long. And when I got to the archives, I realized that people were preserving this for years and decades before me. I thought it was the only one that cared about this. I would go through my photos and think, wow, I love these photos of Pride Festival, but I'm the only one that really cares about them. And then I found the archives and found out we have always been here, and the archives can prove it. And so it was so important to me, and it provided proof. And so the proof worked as when I got older, but it didn't work when I was a kid, the photography for that. So what am I doing next?
Yeah, what are you working on? Well, obviously you're promoting the show or working the show and doing like really cool events like this one and other events. Do you have something on the horizon that you seem to be working on?
Well, I don't think I'm ever going to stop because I just can't. It's just in my blood.
Well, you have your list now.
I'm adding to my list. But the next thing I'm doing is going to the Lesbian Lives conference that's in Ireland. And it was international, but it was in New York in October last year. It got 700 women, sold out. And then they decided, because so many people from Europe, where it started, would not come to the United States for that conference, that they would have it in 6 months instead of a year. So I'm going to Ireland. And we're going to that conference next. And, I'd love to spend when I do retire, it's kind of like being a golfer. I'm just going to be going around photographing lesbians. So don't think I'm not going to show up at your next event taking your picture.
Any other questions? Yes.
Don't you have an award coming up or something?
Oh, yeah. It's really, when you get on the right track in your life, things just start happening. It's crazy. I was on the Lesbian Visibility Committee with the City of West Hollywood for years. And we used to give out the Melissa Etheridge Award for a leader in the lesbian community. And not this weekend, but next Saturday, I'm getting the Melissa Etheridge Award. Yes, I hate to give my speech in advance, but I kept thinking, what am I going to say? And I thought, I've always been a professional lesbian, but I never thought I'd ever get an award for it. Right. So it's really shocking, but really amazing thing happening to me. It feels like a dream, really. But I really credit that to the city of West Hollywood, to be honest, because do you know another city that gives a Melissa Etheridge Award? There isn't one, and it's an award for being a leader in the lesbian community. What an amazing city this is, right?
Yeah. I wanted to ask about one person, because I know she was so significant to you, and you put her in a significant place at the top of the.
Yeah,
And so
Diane,
did you
you're
place these? Did you place these in a particular way so that, and she's also one of the, well, maybe let's position that way, and she has lesbian all around her.
Yeah, I'd say that most of these are not deliberately placed, but that one actually was.
Could you talk about that?
So this is Diane Germain, and she's kind of a mover. She was a mover and shaker lesbian activist in San Diego. And we have her collection here. And what's so amazing is she spent her retirement organizing all the photos she took from the 70s, 80s, 90s of the lesbian community and of the pride festivals. And so she was a lot like me in San Diego before I was around. And we became friends. And her greatest compliment to me was when we'd leave after I'd have dinner with her, and she'd say, "You're such a good lesbian." And I just thought, I've never wanted to hear anything more than that, So we went to an exhibit in San Diego at a museum in Balboa Park. And it was curated,
San Diego Gay History.
yeah, curated by Lillian Faderman, another person on my list of lesbians to photograph before I die. And she wrapped herself in the lesbian ribbons, and I took that picture of her. And she died 2 years ago. Yeah.
She was an awesome lesbian.
She was a professional lesbian.
Yeah, she was a professional lesbian. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot, and it's interesting because there's some people on the wall here who, like Carolyn Weathers. I know
her sister, Brenda.
Yeah, when her sister Brenda, and when you said it was, there was no pictures of people in the bars. Carolyn is one of my book, Baby, You Are My Religion, about lesbian bars, has a picture by Carolyn Weathers on the cover, and it's 1961 San Antonio, Texas, taken with a Browning camera. And so Carolyn's one of the few people who was prescient enough to think this life matters and I should photograph it. But Angela's right. Those photographs are so difficult because people were illegal, mentally ill, and everything else. So you have some photos here, of Carolyn and like Diane as a lesbian artist. She worked with Judy Chicago. She was part of the work that Judy Chicago did in the Women's Building. And so it's interesting that there's some people that you became from. Pat Lamas, another artist and mover shaker who had like awesome, collections of things. You have some people here, and I see. Keep your questions. We're going to wrap up soon. But why are there so many photos of the L word?
So there's so many photos of the L word because it was the biggest thing that hit the lesbian community in my lifetime. And I went every year to the opening of the new season and shot the red carpet. So almost all the cast is here and group shots. And I was thrilled to death because, I didn't see somebody just like me on the L Word, but it was a TV show with all women in the cast pretty much. And they were pretty much all lesbians. And I'd never seen anything like it. So I was thrilled to death to go and shoot the new season every year.
Yeah. It's almost 8:30, and I think we have until 9 in the space, but I want to give people a chance to walk around and see the photos. Is there any other questions that anybody has or comments? Yes.
It was interesting listening to what you just said about being like a good lesbian was all you want to be. It's interesting growing up. It took me a long time to realize I was gay because there was just no lesbians that looked like me around. And I think I'm just curious now to you, like, I mean, this is kind of personal, but what does it mean to you to be lesbian? Like, what does that mean to you?
Well, as you might.
Angela.
Do you want to answer that first? I could take notes.
I would ask Angela, but both of you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, Well, I mean, I've all my life, somebody asked me once, when did you know you were lesbian? And I didn't know the word, but I always joke and say, I noticed the nurse when I was being born. Like, that's when I knew I was a lesbian. I just didn't know the word. And I just have felt this way my whole life. And I knew everybody thought it was wrong, but I knew it wasn't wrong. I knew it was really natural for me. And that's who I was. And I didn't know what I was going to do when I was young because I knew it was unacceptable. But you know how people now even now they say, yes, I'm a lesbian, but it's not everything about me. And I'm
Right.
really this first. I feel the opposite. I am a lesbian first and foremost. It's the most important thing to me in my life as far as who I am. And I want to represent that my whole life. And I often will say something like, some of the best people are LGBTQ. And I'll often say some of the best people are lesbians because I never heard it. No one's ever said it to me. And I figure a lot of people need to hear that, right? Some of the best people are lesbians. How do you like that concept?
I think lesbianism saved my life. I mean, I don't think I know it. I was brought up in a very rough environment, very rough upbringing, very tough. And I'm extraordinarily grateful that I came out at 21. And when I came out, it was like down the rabbit hole. It was everything. And I mean, it was stunning, like, stunning and awesome. And lesbian bookstores, lesbian concerts, lesbians, lesbian sex, lesbian musicians, lesbian everything. If that whole world, I couldn't believe it was there. And that it was there like for me to enter into. And that it was so, and the ways that I saw to be a woman, that the ways that lesbians were women, was so freeing. And it saved my life. It really, and we talk about that. Just like so grateful that the lesbian feminist movement, particularly at that time, 1979 for me was showed me ways to be in my body, showed me ways to be on the planet, to be in relationship that I had no mirror for. When I teach in the queer community, we talk a lot about self-identifying, and that's a really big thing. Like, how do you self-identify? But it's really not what happens. You can't really you don't create this in a little room by yourself. You have to see it. So you have to see the proof somewhere. And then you see a butch lesbian, or you see this person, and then you go home and you go, hey, maybe that's me. But you identify with something that now is possible. And so for me, seeing lesbian feminists, seeing the independence, and I was with super radical women. I mean, we put blood on our forehead and said, wore t-shirts. I am a woman, I can bleed for days and not die. I mean, I was that, like, this totally scary, like, radical, like, dyke lesbian. I mean, it was just awesome. And, I think being able to see, and that's why these photographs are so important. Like, you see a way to be in the world and you're like, oh, I didn't know that I could be that. I didn't know that that was possible for me. And so, being lesbian was that for me. It was like a whole world that I didn't even know. Growing up in like a working class Irish native background, none of that was available to me until I came out.
I was going to say, a weird thing happened with the Christy McNichol picture. Somebody who was advising me said, there's a million pictures of her online. So if your picture's anything like one of those, just don't put it in the exhibit. And that week I was on Facebook, and this woman who was about 74 years old said, I finally did it. I finally got my dream haircut, the Christy McNichol haircut. And I was like, okay, it's going in the show, no matter what, and not everyone can relate to that, but I think everyone deserves to see other people who are like them and validate them and to be who they really are. Because I've always said, as long as we encourage people to lie about who they are, We have, families broken up after people have 4 children, and all these things happen that are not great for people if they have to lie about who they are. So, yeah, my ideal future is everyone gets to be who they are and true to themselves, however that is.
And they have more to identify with, like, that like there's more.
Right, because
Yeah,
everybody can be who they really are. So
Right.
they see more people that are different,
Any other questions? Yes.
Hey, and I've seen you around for so many years, even in my backyard.
Did I always have my camera on my hip?
Yeah.
Yes.
So good that you were there, and I was just feel although I've never really talked.
Yeah.
To be here and get to know you here, what do you think about it?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I'm so glad you came. And I know you very well. I know your face very well because I photographed you a lot. And even the SCWU pictures, I didn't put them up here because I felt like I might have to ask. That's the thing. I photographed the Dykes group at Connexus in 1989. And I was like, there's 20 people in that group. I'd have to go ask them all. Is it okay? I mean, and that's the thing with being marginalized, right? Is, a lot of lesbians have burned their own history. Because again, even today, it depends on where you live, what religion you grow up in. It really still depends on those things even today. So it's still a tough time for a lot of people, unfortunately.
Any other questions or comments? I will shout out to Marna back there. She's on the wall up here on a motorcycle.
Marna helped me so much with any lesbians on motorcycles. She found out who they were in 5 minutes because she knows them all.
You raise your hand.
She's the head of Dykes on Bikes in most of Southern California, at least, right? And really, I had to get the 2 women here. I'll just show you. I had to find out their names and get them to sign a release, and boom, 10 minutes or something. She told me who they were, and I got their email and texted them or whatever. So it's like,
The Melissa, which I was 2019, so.
oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and Jeanette was, I think, 2017.
Yeah, that's as it should be.
So, welcome.
Wow, I'm in really amazing company. Thank you for saying that. Hey, you've been a phenomenal audience. Thank you.
Is there any other last comments? Anything else that you would like to say?
I just remember very fondly, because you were talking about that people would say to me sometimes if I went somewhere, they'd go, oh, I didn't recognize you without your camera. Because I literally couldn't carry it on my neck very well because I had it would give me a sore neck. I don't know how photographers give it. So I had a holster case. It was just here. But anyway, so I also felt really butch because I would pull it out of my holster and then put it back. But yeah, I was so proud of the fact that people didn't recognize me without my camera. Very proud of that.
So to end our recording, I just wanted to read the quote that is on the top of the, and this has the information and was on all of your chairs if you want to take this with you and come back. This is from Angela, and we're going to end with this. And we are going to be here for a while if you want to see it, especially if you came in, you didn't get a chance to see the photos, we'll hang around. So from Angela Brinskele, it is still radical even today to focus on lesbians and queer women as though their lives and what they do is important because it is. Thank you so much.
But I also wanted to do something so I could bring you a little proclamation because I'm sure you've gotten one before. And if you haven't, then shame on the city.
I don't see my name
But
that big.
I wanted to make sure the city of West Hollywood documented not only how amazing you are, but truly what you do for so many people.
It says proof we have always been here on there.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you. That's amazing. I will cherish that.